Well, thank you for that kind welcome, and I'm so thrilled again to be at the Skoll Forum and to just get the energy of everybody here, and the energy for change, and the energy for tackling challenges that are, frankly, incredibly challenging, incredibly difficult. As Michael said, I think I am a kind of reformed economist. I spent much of my career working on economic development. And I co-chaired the Global Competitiveness Report, which is now kind of the standard way that countries compare themselves in terms of economic development. And I think we've actually learned quite a bit about economic development. And we've taken our thinking about economic development to really a whole new level in the world. And I'm proud of that, and I think that's good. But I think what we have come to understand is that the traditional model of development focused on economic development alone is incomplete and, frankly, has created many, many problems in the world. And the challenge we have now is to kind of open up our model of development and think about it in a more fundamental way. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go beyond just economics. And we're going to have to avoid the shortcut of thinking that if we can just get the economics right, everything else takes care of itself. And that is the work that I have been doing with a wonderful group of colleagues on this notion of the Social Progress Index. So let me give you the very high-level view of what we're trying to do and what it might mean for you, the folks here at this meeting, and invite you all to work with us and push us and challenge us, and we'll work together, hopefully, to make this truly the paradigm shift that Michael just so boldly spoke about. The traditional thinking about development has really been riveted on, as you see here, economic development. And the assumption has been that if we achieve improving economic development and higher GDP per capita, that will lead to a better society. As we'll see, there's a good reason for that thinking, and actually the effect is there. Economic progress does make a positive difference in general to social progress. But we've also learned that sometimes, and we're seeing this more and more, economic development is not leading to the kind of societal progress that we all care about and hope for. And the Arab Spring is just one manifestation of that. Tunisia was a country that was really successful economically. It was a star in terms of economic development. But ultimately, this country fell apart. Why? Because the economic progress wasn't leading to the kind of societal progress that we all hope for. We're also learning something that I think all of you intuitively knew, but it took us economists a long time to catch up. And that is that unless you have a certain societal fabric and societal assets and societal improvement, ultimately you run into a wall on economic development. You can't do that successfully. So what we're starting to see is there's really a two-way connection here. Economic development is important for moving society forward, but not always. And moving society forward is critical to actually succeeding over the long run in economic development. But ultimately, this is going to require us to kind of open up our work and our thinking and our measurement on the social side, just as we historically have focused primarily on the economic side. If we're going to actually open up this paradigm and expand it, we're going to have to learn how to measure social progress itself, rather than the shortcut of GDP. And that's what the Social Progress Index project is really all about. This is a project that's been underway now for about 4 years. Last week, we released the 2015 version of the Social Progress Index. I hope you saw it, and if you haven't, I hope you will look at it. It's based on a number of premises that we have to bring the same rigor of measurement to social progress as we long have to economic progress, if we're going to achieve these dual goals of development, to achieve both. The social progress framework then is based on a number of core premises. One, that when we measure social progress, we should do that exclusively. We shouldn't mix in economic variables. A lot of the previous efforts here have commingled economic and social, and that actually obscures what's going on rather than clarifies it. We don't know what's causing what. We don't know what's enabling what. So the Social Progress Index, as you'll see, is fundamentally only about societal improvement. It's focused on outcomes, not how hard we tried, not how much money we spent. We're trying to measure just the outcomes of society. And I think this is something that the field of social development needs to really embrace much more aggressively. We have to focus on outcomes. Good intentions are not enough. Working hard is not enough. It's the outcomes that matter. And this effort tries to capture those absolutely directly. We try to create a holistic framework that applies to every country. Every country can improve. There's a wide set of social attributes and characteristics of society that matter. We need to try to capture as many of those as possible, rather than the siloed view of social progress that we often see, where everybody works on their issue, rather than sees holistically how the entire society is progressing and how the pieces fit together. And finally, we need to be specific enough and concrete enough that it's actionable, that we're actually measuring things that we can imagine actually changing, because we're measuring at a concrete level. We're not measuring broad concepts, we're measuring specific dimensions of a good society. The Social Progress Index framework then, it looks like this. As we see social progress broadly, we see it in three fundamental categories. One, are we meeting people's basic needs in the country, in the society, in the region, as you'll see later? We can look at this at the national level, but we can also look at it actually at the regional level, the municipal level, at any level we want. Are we creating the foundations of well-being and a better life? Things like access to basic knowledge, things like access to information and communication, and so forth, you see. And finally, and very, very importantly, it turns out from the work we've done, is there opportunity for any citizen in the society to reach their full potential, whatever potential they want to pursue? Is that opportunity present? These three broad dimensions then add up to what we define as social progress. And of course, we've got a very granular, data-driven way of trying to measure those concretely with the help of many of you. There's a vast literature and knowledge about social development and about all of these dimensions. What we found is the best possible measures that cover a large number of countries, and we've pulled those together in what I believe is a very, very rigorous measurement framework. Now, this kind of gives you a picture of the world. If we want to look at the world as a whole, where are we making the most progress? The way the social progress is measured is it's put on a scale of 0 to 100. 0 is the worst we've ever seen in any country ever. 100 is the best performance we've ever seen in any country ever on a particular dimension. So you can think of this as kind of an absolute score. The closer to 100, the closer we've solved this problem. The closer to 0, the closer we are to being nowhere. And if you look at the major dimensions of social progress, you can see that in terms of basic human needs, in terms of access to basic knowledge, we've made a lot of progress in the world. On average, we're performing at a quite high level. But you can see that on many other dimensions of social progress, the picture is very, very different. We're much farther behind. And it's interesting that one of the major challenges in the world is this issue of opportunity. How can we create societies where there really is opportunity for everybody, rather than limits on their rights or intolerance or discrimination or other forms of those limits? We use this framework to actually now look at 133 countries in the world, accounting for virtually all of the world's population, 99% of it. For each of those countries, we can now have a very rigorous picture of how society is progressing and doing in that place. And this is just a part of the ranking of those 133 countries. If you look down this list, you can take any country there and now pull it apart. Really expose the society and how it's progressing. And to do that, we also make use of the linkage between the social improvement and the economic improvement. So what this chart does is it sort of plots the social progress of the country versus the economic development of the country. And what you see is, yes, there's a relationship. Improving economic prosperity is associated with better social progress. But boy, it's a messy and incomplete relationship. And we can see countries on the lower part below the line that are really underperforming from a social progress point of view. And you can see that China and Russia and India, as much economic progress as they've made, the society is lagging behind. You can see other countries like New Zealand or Costa Rica or Norway where the opposite is true, where the society is overperforming what you would expect given the level of GDP. And that says that social policy matters, that social policy can be driven and affected. It's not all a fatalistic result of your economic success. And people like you are making a gigantic difference on the ground, country by country, and this data is just revealing that very, very clearly. Now, once we have this measurement framework, once we can apply the same rigorous measurement to social progress as we have long applied to economic progress, what does that allow us to do? Well, first of all, we can benchmark our performance. We can say, how are we doing? How is this country performing relative to its peers? Relative to countries of similar economic development, is the U.S. doing well or is the U.S. doing poorly? Where are we better? Where are we worse? What are our strengths and what are our weaknesses? What are the priorities? If we look rigorously and compare ourselves to other countries that are in a comparable situation. We've never been able to do this before. When we think about social development, we think in silos. We think about discrete issues. We think about, we kind of have been inward looking. We have to start comparing and measuring ourselves if we're going to actually take this incredibly important field for the future of the world and move it more rapidly than we have even in the past. Now, let me just show you some of the data. Here is my country, the United States. This is kind of the dashboard of how the U.S. is doing on social progress compared to other countries of similar economic prosperity. And the answer is lousy. America we think of ourselves as number one. We're nowhere near number one. In many of these areas of social progress, the U.S. was actually a leader, a pioneer. Universal primary education, access to universities. Area after area, if you look at the proud history of the U.S., we led, not just in economic, but in social development. But now, for a variety of reasons, we've slipped. We're far behind. Our dashboard is covered with red. We're failing because we haven't looked at these things in this way. We haven't had the visibility to actually compare ourselves to what we should be achieving relative to other advanced countries. Now let's take Costa Rica. Here's a much lower income country, but its dashboard is full of green. It's been able, through remarkable commitment and remarkable policy and the work of many people like you, to really move way ahead on some dimensions of social progress for a country at its level of development. But even Costa Rica has some issues. And this analysis allows us to see exactly where those red spots are and hopefully do something about them and set better priorities. And what we're hoping, and this is starting to happen, is that nations are starting to use this dashboard alongside of their economic dashboard. And finally, we have the opportunity to kind of accelerate the change in many of these dimensions. We're going to hear a little bit later about Brazil. I thought you'd be interested in the Brazil dashboard. Brazil's got some great strengths. Brazil is actually doing pretty well on social progress overall, but there's some conspicuous problem areas, and you'll hear about some of those. And then finally, Paul Farmer probably will talk a little bit about Rwanda. Rwanda is a country that started in a disastrous situation 20 years ago. And because of an enormous focus on social progress in a variety of critical areas, you see a lot of green. And I personally believe, having worked in Rwanda, that the economic success of Rwanda today that has been sustained now for well over a decade is due to the fact that the country also made aggressive investments in lighting up this dashboard with green in a variety of key areas, including health that Paul will talk about. The opportunity we have here is to really change our paradigm for development. I think what we have to understand is economic development is two things. It's economic progress, it's increasing economic prosperity, but at the same time, it's improving society. And we can't leave the improving society part to chance. We've got to give that visibility. We've got to view that as equally important. And ultimately, I think what we'll find 10 or 20 years from now is actually the improving society part will probably be the key to economic development. And that's the opportunity, and that's our obligation as we do this work and work with all of you in the process. So we'd love to hear all of your thoughts about this. We'd love to hear how we can make it better. We'd love to work with you at the grassroots level, wherever you're working. I think we have an opportunity to change the game in development over the next 5 or 10 years. Thank you.